So you've been watching a bit of Harry Potter, you've been to a local falconry display, you've been watching way too much TikTok. Now you want to get yourself a pet owl. Worse, you want to get your kids a pet owl. And you know what? They're not even expensive to buy. Barn owl, captive bred, fully legit, not from the wild, captive bred in the UK, probably going to cost you £100. I imagine some kids' computer games cost more than that. Do you really want a pet owl? Let's have a look at all the reasons. I'm not going to run to 100. It'd get boring. I could probably make up 100 for sure. Let's look at some essential reasons why you do not want any kind of owl for a pet, or for flying, or for training, or for trying to be a pseudo falconer and learn about falconry techniques to work a bird of prey. And you think, well, an owl's good because it's only 100 quid and they look nicer than an eagle or a hawk or a falcon because they're cute. Let's look at some reasons not to get one of those. And I actually say, honestly, apart from a crocodile or a lion, one of the worst pets you can get is an owl. Don't ever get a pet owl and think incredibly long and hard before you get an owl to train and work with. You'll get bored of it and it's going to live way too long. You're going to get bored way too soon. So you've got to build it housing, haven't you? Keeping owls tethered during night time is very frowned upon and wrong. They don't see things close up like the daytime birds of prey, and they don't understand being tethered. They end up trashing their tails and looking very miserable. Tethering in the day, if you've seen them at a show, that's slightly different. Owls are designed to sit around and do nothing in the day, just chill out and doze. Very different to... So keeping them tethered in the day is very different to keeping an owl tethered. You need to build it a house. You need a bit of room for that. You need to think about all the design of the housing. You need a double door system, an alleyway behind, so when you open the door, you don't lose your owl and it flies away over your shoulder. It'll definitely happen. You need maybe a box if it's an owl that likes to sleep inside something, but it certainly needs places to fly and places to hide. You're going to need some kind of mesh on the roof that maybe cats and things can't reach through. There's a fine steel mesh up there on top of the mesh. You're going to need a different kind of mesh here, something soft that it doesn't hurt itself on. So on and so forth. Quite a big area, and the price of materials nowadays, actually to build your owlet enclosure, is actually going to cost you probably a few quid, no matter how you go about it. It doesn't matter whether it's a small owl or a large owl, it still needs the right kind of enclosure. And of course, an owl like this does look beautiful in its weird way. And anything that looks beautiful, of course, is desirable. Whether it's a house plant, a car, a wife or a husband. That's the way humans work. Unfortunately, just because something's beautiful and you desire it, doesn't mean you can afford it or look after it and maintain it. That definitely can go for wives and cars, let alone owls as well. Think about what kind of owl you'd want, because different owls have different things that they do, different ways they do things, different habits. Some have much different temperaments. Some are incredibly easygoing, some are incredibly nervous, some need constant attention if you're going to work with them, some not quite as much. Here's a classic owl that everyone seems to want, the European eagle owl, and I'll tell you why. It's got lovely looking eyes and it's big, and you can say, I've kind of got an eagle at home. That's the way human nature works. I want a huge owl. I want the biggest owl I can get because I can show off and it'd be more impressive. This is one of the hardest species to fly consistently. They are just good at shutting and slowing down their metabolism and absolutely ignoring you at all costs. A very difficult species of owl to fly very well indeed. It looks great. This owl has the potential to hurt you. Even a barn owl can seriously cause you pain. An owl like this could send you to hospital for sure if it ended up putting its talons in the wrong place. So you don't just need to think, oh, it's a cuddly teddy. It's not. You need to understand body language when you're working with snakes, dogs, or even owls. Why are they doing what they're doing? Is there potential for it to cause me harm? Of course there is. Any animal with sharp edges still has a fight or flight response. It can get away from you, or it can grab you with its talons because you put it in a spot where it feels threatened and can't get away from you. Is it a child's pet? Absolutely not. Now you might want something special, something different. Money's no object. Something like a milky eagle owl, quite an expensive owl. Again, quite hard to work with well. And if you're a novice, you're going to struggle to fly an owl like this for sure. There's far easier options, but being bigger, of course, when it comes to training to fly, you're less likely to make a mistake when you go through the whole cycle of weighing the bird to find out what's going on in its brain. Has it got an appetite or not? A small owl, much easier to end up killing through poor weight management. Maybe you don't want a really big owl, you want quite the opposite. You want a cute small owl, like a little owl. Inexpensive to buy. All the owls you're going to work with here in the UK are captive bred. You can just go and buy them from breeders as a little chick and then hand rear it. But you need to understand imprinting, hand rearing any bird, because you won't work with an owl if you go and buy it from a breeder as an adult or a fully grown owl reared by its owl parents. You'll never train that owl. It will always hate being around you. The only way you can interact with an owl kindly is to hand rear it and imprint it. A whole topic there of just how do you actually hand rear an owl healthily without killing it. And then you think, oh, what a cute little owl, because he's so tiny and cute. Look at him. Doubly hard species to work with. It's so tiny and fragile, weight management wise. And a little owl, if you don't work with it for a few weeks, in its head, it'll become totally wild and take loads more work to get tame, if you will. So it's just because something looks cute or looks nice to you, that doesn't even make it a very good owl to begin with at all. A little owl is about the worst owl you could get, for sure, unless you really know your stuff and what you're doing. By the way, it's going to live between 10 and 15 years. Yeah, this little guy here, European eagle owl, we showed you earlier, they can live for more than 65 years. Let that sink in. 65 years of cleaning up owl poo, putting up with its noise, picking up its pellets, maintaining its aviary, and if you want it to stay anything like tame and come out at all in the day, you've got to interact with it most days for 65 years. So this little white-faced owl here, he's 13 years old, and I've been working with him most days for 13 years. That's my job. I can't do my job without owls because people love owls. So for education and conservation awareness, an owl is, I can get people on board more than a hawk, for instance. Many talks I do at Owl Talk. So he's in an aviary that's 8 foot by 6 foot. Look how small he is. He's pint-sized. Would you want him in less space? Not really. He needs room to fly around and do his thing for nearly the whole day that you're not doing anything with your owl. Little white-faced owl. He's going to do, I reckon, about 20 years in captivity. Little cutie like that. An African white-faced owl. 20 years. One reason not to get an owl is for sure they live a lot longer than any kind of pet you really want to be looking after. So listen to Spot here. He's talking away. Contact call. Oh no, now he's making the noise I want him to make. He's making a call to call a mate. Listen to that. It sounds so lovely. It's a deep sound, not the horrible screech of a banner. Ooh, ooh. Doesn't it sound nice? It carries for over half a mile on a still night and keeps you awake. What's more importantly, owls keep your neighbours awake if you got them. 240 species of owl in the world, thereabouts. Some screech, some hoot, some bark, some meow. One species, only one, when they're calling to each other, says twit twoo, the tawny owl. Most owls make noises that are quite offensive at night. They make nearly all their noise at night, and their noises carry on a still night. Your neighbours just don't want to hear that. Imagine in the summer when you've all got your windows open, it's too hot to sleep. They don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. One reason not to keep them, they make a lot of horrible noises after dark. Spot here, he's 20 plus years old, hand reared and been flying here for over 20 years. He's flown most days, free flying, handled and worked with most days. But if you don't interact with your owl most days, even though it's captive bred and not a wild animal, its psychology is a wild animal and it'll revert back to its wild state, even though it was hand reared by a human. Another reason not to keep them is, unless you put the time in, you'll just have an owl sitting in an aviary or shed at the bottom of your garden, and to be honest, it's going to be bored, cheesed off, and it's going to be neglected for most of its life, because once it's grown up, you've got it for most of your life. Our birds are kept in pretty immaculate conditions. He's been thoroughly cleaned out today. There's already a load of smelly poo there. It smells. If you feed your owl in its aviary and it doesn't eat all of its food, it's also going to attract flies, and flies make maggots. Maggots make more flies. Cleanliness, husbandry. Another reason not to get one. You've got to do that husbandry and that cleanliness. You don't want flies around your yard or your garden. Owls absolutely stink. Their housing does take up space. Another reason not to get them. Have you got the space to build a nice owlie housing? Or haven't you? Well, she's my personal barn owl. I hand reared her about 15 years ago. Yeah, she comes to school most days with me. That's most of her job. She's done all sorts of work, outside flying displays and so on. Owls have very sharp talons, and an owl like this, once it's a couple of 3 years old, if you've hand reared it and you're the one that mostly interacts with it, it might hate, and I mean hate, anyone else in your family, including yourself sometimes if you're in their aviary space. Take no chances. This cute animal, it's only cute because it's got a humanoid face and it looks cute. There's nothing cute about an owl. It's a cold-blooded, nocturnal assassin that doesn't even give its prey the chance to outmaneuver it like a diurnal raptor. It sneaks up on prey that's relying on having infinitely good hearing like a mouse to warn it of incoming danger. So the owl's evolved flying that has special feathers. That means it's silent. It's a cold-blooded assassin, make no mistake. And if you hand rear this girl here, she doesn't like your wife or your children, the capability of an owl to attach itself to those people's faces if they open the aviary when you're not around is massive. It's cute, yeah. It matures, certainly at 1 year old, but by 3 years, if you work with this owl a lot and no one else does, it will see them as you two-timing them. They're territorial. If you imprint any bird, it thinks it's a human. So therefore, other humans around its territory, I'm in its space now, are seen as a threat. Nothing welcoming about them, unless they're the ones that work with them day to day. Not all the staff here can work with Plop. She's savage, certainly when it comes to getting her in and out of her aviary, her immediate territory, far more. Some owls are potentially dangerous things. You can't trust her. If I look at her wrong now, in her aviary, she could still jump up at my face. You've only got 2 eyes. And to be honest, if you're a grown-up, you're a grown-up. Your kids have only got 2 eyes as well. A really good reason not to get an owl is they're not cute and cuddly. They can hurt you, and they have very sharp talons to do the hurting with. Some owls, like great horned owls, have even been known to attack people in the wild state, nesting, joggers and cyclists go by, and they'll grab onto their head and cut their head. Owls are predators. They're very unintelligent predators that rely on their wits, their instincts. There is no wise old owl. One reason not to get them, like many non-domesticated animals, they're not trustworthy, and they do have the potential to hurt you. So if you don't understand animal language, animal body language, you've got a lot to learn, because whatever animals you're working with, they'll have body language. Even unintelligent species of animals like snakes, very low intelligence, have body language, and in some cases, even a snake, a verbal language to tell you stuff. For instance, a snake hissing loudly at you is probably saying, clear off, I don't really want you near me. This barn owl is making a sound that says, and she's giving me a look. That's a cross sound of a barn owl. That's a really miserable, I really don't like what's going on here. And what she doesn't like going on is I haven't come to her aviary to take her out, fly her and feed her. I've just popped in here with absolutely nothing for her to make this video. And she's giving me the sound of a barn owl that says, I'm actually really cheesed off. And they have loads of body language. They might put their wings out and clack their beak if they feel threatened or nervous to make themselves look bigger and sound confusing. A barn owl will put its wings down and put its head down and shake its head slowly left and right. That's a really cheesed off barn owl. And like any animal, one reason not to get them is the fight and flight response. If it takes flight, you're making it nervous and you're not doing your job right. If it decides to fight, this is a potential sharp-edged creature that can definitely make you bleed. It could even grab your children around the face. please believe me, a lion cub is cute. I would not want to mess with a lion. Most owls are not to that extreme, but they certainly start off incredibly cute and benign for everyone. But as they mature, remember, they could become a species that really doesn't like some of your family and will say so in no uncertain terms physically. It's not a cuddly toy. She's right, Cheesdorf. Here's a lovely species of owl, spectacled owl. It looks like a baby yeti, honestly, when it's before it fledges, when it's an owlet baby owl. Absolutely amazing. All your friends are going to love it. They're going to want to come and see your baby yeti, your spectacled owl, or any owlet you've got. But one reason not to get them is they're only owlets for a brief window of time. A barn owl is fully feathered and fully grown at 12 weeks. A huge great European eagle owl, one of the biggest owl species in the world, it's about 16 weeks. It's fully grown and fully feathered. It will never change how big it is or how it looks really then for the rest of its life. One reason not to get them is they're only cute things for a very short time. Now, if you say, Dave, I don't want it as a pet, Dave. I know it's wrong to keep these owls as a pet. There's a, yeah, what do you call it? I don't know. There's a conundrum, because if it's wrong to keep an owl as a pet, I guess it's wrong to keep a parrot as a pet. In fact, I'd say it's far worse keeping a parrot as a pet, because it's so intelligent. Most people don't put the time into a parrot and they get mentally bored. Your owl won't get bored. It'll just get mistreated by the fact you just will lose interest and you won't house it or think of it correctly if you think of it as a pet for sure. Don't get a pet owl. Now, you say, no, but I'm not going to get a pet owl. I want to use some falconry techniques. I want to learn a bit about how falconers train birds, and I want to train my owl. You need the right kit then, don't you? You need the right kit to do that. And there's a video on the channel, all the falconry equipment you'll need. Check that out for birds of prey. Well, most of that's relevant to the owls, but let me just talk you through some of the kit you're going to need if you're going to train an owl outside of the housing and the main building or enclosure you're going to keep your owl in. There's loads more stuff you need. We're just in our weighing room here. You're going to need telemetry. That new is about probably need £1,000 now. And you stick one of these transmitters on your owl's leg or tail when you're flying it. They're over £200. So telemetry new is over £1,000 for sure. And then we've got kit like jesses and anklets and various things like that. Again, it's all money. Someone makes them. I've even had hood makers say they've had people ring up and say, can you make me a hood for an owl? That shows how little research most people do when it comes really to keeping and training owls. You're going to want some kind of glove. You can get a cheap glove now for about 30 quid. Made in India or Pakistan or somewhere like that on eBay. It'll do the job. At least have a proper falconry glove and not just an old welding glove. Falconry bags, you know, again on eBay you might get one for 30 or 40 quid, or 150 quid if you want a top quality one. But all in all the equipment you're going to need, and there's far more than that, all the equipment to train your owl is going to run into quite a bit of money. Another reason not to get an owl, because you thought a baby owl was 100 quid, and now I'm telling you, with the housing it's going to cost thousands. There's definitely a reason not to get one. Some of my sort of elitists, am I saying to you guys, well, I've got owls, you shouldn't have them? Not at all. I'm actually saying to you guys, I've got owls. I fly owls for the public. I fly owls for education. You should go and see people doing that. And don't get your own owl. Let the people do all the work, have all the noise, clean out all the mess, have the real long term of their life involved with looking after and training their owls. Go and enjoy someone else keeping them. I'm actually telling you, they're not a good idea. And I'm trying to give you some real solid reasons as why they're not a good idea. Heck, we all want stuff. I had a pet crocodile as a kid until my mum found it in my bedroom and went ballistic. Realistically, is a pet crocodile in your bedroom a good idea? Of course it's not. As a kid, you don't realise that. But you're a grown-up and you might be your kids wanting these things. Just accept we can't always have what we want because we can't afford it or we don't have the time to do it properly. Now, when it comes to animals, that's critically important. If you get a fast motorbike and you never have time to learn how to ride it properly, worst case is you're going to come off and kill yourself. Best case is you're going to get scared of it and get rid of it. But when it's an animal, not having the time or the money to get the right equipment that it needs or the right housing, it's the animal it suffers. Don't get animals on a whim. Just normal, everyday domestic animals like dogs and cats. There are hundreds and thousands of them in dog pounds and cat rescues, because even those seemingly easy to keep animals, people can't manage, and they don't realise because they buy them on a whim. And how's that times 100? Seriously, it really is. Certainly do a lot of research before you think about it. Don't buy an owl because it's 100 quid. No way. So, true story, when my wife met me many moons ago, I had a chest freezer out in the shed, and it had my food in it and a sheet of polystyrene dividing up the chest freezer, and my hawk food, I had a goshawk at the time, my hawk food in the other side. And one day I said, Dave, is there anything to eat in this house? What are we having for tea? And I said, oh, I don't know, I can't cook. There's probably a pizza in the freezer. And out she went, she took out a pizza, not knowing what was in the freezer really, turned it over to read the instructions on the back, and there was a dead day-old cockerel squashed frozen to the side of it. She screamed. The next day we went and bought another freezer. But let me show you what's in our freezer, because one reason not to keep an owl is you have to be a butcher and you have to store cute animals dead in your freezer and then cut them up the next day when you've thawed them out so you can feed your owl. I love animals. I used to breed rats to feed to my snake. I don't do it anymore. I buy them really hypocritically because I got too soft to euthanize them every time they were culled like farming. So look at what we've got here. Loads of bits of dead animals and then actual dead animals. So not to this quantity, but you're going to need definitely frozen mice, because rats and mice are the best food you can feed your owl. They're really expensive nowadays. Now, they're probably 70 pence each or something like that to buy, maybe more. Your owl, your little barn owl, I don't know, it's going to want at least, if it's just having mice, maybe 4 of those a day. And then your cheap stuff, which are just a few pence each, your day-old cockerels, but they've got hardly any goodness in them. They have got goodness in them, that's a lie, but it's not a balanced diet. So at least you're going to want, even worst case scenario, 2/3 day-old chicks, day-old cockerels, and then 1/3 of something really good, like a mouse. The cost of keeping an owl's food on a daily basis isn't that high. But where are you going to put these dead animals? And then when you cut them up and you cut the bits off you don't need and you cut the guts out of your mice, you're going to put them somewhere. If you just throw them into your wheelie bin that goes out every fortnight, you're going to have more maggots and blowflies than you ever thought possible from such a small amount of meat waste. Think about it. We freeze it all and then we get rid of it en masse. Where are you going to keep the food? Are you actually going to be happy with a pair of scissors, because it's the best option, of cutting up mice? When you rear your owl, you've got to cut those mice up into tiny pieces. Their little hearts and livers, their little faces. You've got to do that. One reason not to get an owl really is because it's a messy, horrible job being a butcher of what looks like, to us, more cute little animals. Now, as birds of prey go, owls are not easy to train. They're actually... Do you know what? To train an owl to reliably to fly to a perch or somewhere else and come back to your glove when you whistle it, and reliably, quite switched on, it's gone over there and I'm going to call it back and it comes back. Yeah, you're doing well. That's like day 3 of training a diurnal raptor, and then you move on to aerial flying and following you around the forest and so on and so forth. For most people, if they can train an owl reliably to go backwards and forwards reliably, they're doing pretty well. But to get any dynamism, flying around in circuits, flying out from the trees and around the trees, that's even harder. One reason not to get them is they're hard to train relatively consistently, for most novices for sure. Another reason is when you do train your owl, a lot of what you're doing with it gets boring incredibly quickly. Think walking your lovely dog around the first block you come to around your house every night at 4 o'clock, whatever the weather. That's it. That's your interaction with your dog. You're going to walk it around and feed it for 50 years if it lived that long. Dogs don't, owls can. Owls are boring to fly, and they're hard to fly consistently well. Of course, as we may have already mentioned, owls can be really expensive to buy. If you want a certain species of owl, it's supply and demand. We don't take them from the wild. People buy them. People breed them so you can buy them as owlets to hand rear yourself. Some species actually cost hundreds or thousands if you want a specific species. The sad thing is, of course, some species are between 50 and 200 pounds. Makes it way too easy to get them without any care for all the expense of equipment and housing you should have first. Another reason, of course, is where you're going to get your owl from. A reason not to get one is, can you trust the breeders anyway? there's some really good animal breeders in the UK and the world that care more about their animals than selling their animals, their offspring. But for sure, some people will just tell you, when it comes to getting rid of their owls that they've bred far too many of, they'll just tell you what they think you want to hear. They won't vet you. They won't care. They just want to get rid of all those owls they've bred before they grow too big to be hand-reared. Because if they're not hand-reared by you, they're not imprinted on you, they're going to be hard work. And if they've not been imprinted even by the breeder before you get them, and they're already at fledgling size and they're in with their parents, you're going to be cruel trying to train that owl. Psychologically, it won't get it. If the owl is not imprinted by you, or at the very least by the breeder, no. If the owl isn't imprinted by you after 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at a push for a big owl, it's going to be awful. It's going to be scared of you a lot, for sure. One reason not to get them: can you trust the person selling them? Where do you get them from? Icarus Falconry here, where you can come and fly owls on an experience day without doing any of the dirty work or housing them. We've got various places like Woodlands to fly woodland owls. The Arches Field here, famous historic field. Loads and loads of space. Where are you going to fly your owl if you train it? Your garden's no good, because it can fly out of your garden, and then it's in an urban environment for most people. How are you going to go and find it? Before it gets killed by a murder of crows or attacked by a cat or someone's dog because it doesn't know they're dangerous, because it's been used to them when you imprinted it. With your dogs and cats, it thinks they're all friendly. How are you going to find it in an urban environment where you can't just walk in a straight line using your telemetry to track down your owl? Reason not to get them is, have you actually got anywhere to train and fly it? So really, I hope this video has given you some stern thoughts. That's what it's meant to do. I love flying the owls. I love seeing people enjoy the owls. I like especially flying my owls in school halls for educational purposes for kids that probably never see any wild animals or any kind of animals because they're just put on an iPad. But from your kids' point of view, getting them immersed in nature, getting them out in your garden, get them down the woods, get them pond dipping, it'll be far more educational and far more rewarding than getting your kid a pet owl. In fact, I'll end this video by saying, if you want to get your kid a pet, and probably yourself, that's incredibly intelligent, incredibly interactive, loving, emotional, and won't bite you or hurt you at all, by far and away, streaks ahead, opposite ends of the spectrum, the best thing you could actually get, bar nothing, would be owl prey. Get yourselves a couple of pet rats. They are the best pets you could ever get outside of a dog. That's family. Rats will verge on family. Blow your mind. Intelligence, loving, emotional, won't bite. And the best thing about them, their average lifespan is 2 years. Your kids will be bored of it in 2 weeks, and mum's only got to look after it for another 2 years, and it pops its clogs naturally. It's not going to while away for 30 or 40 years in a shed in the bottom of your garden. Get a pet rat. Don't get a rat predator for sure. If you're hell-bent at the end of this video because you're not going to listen, and you're going to have a pet owl, or you're going to get an owl to try and train, whatever, do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people that have had owls for years, and find out everything you can. But I'm telling you now, you will get bored of your owl with the best intentions ever, and you will not keep it for its entire life unless it's down in a shed doing nothing at all. And I'm heading off home from the Falconry Centre. The gloaming's starting. It's starting to get a little bit dark. One reason not to get a pet owl is the same as the reason not to get any nocturnal pet. It inherently wants to come out and do stuff at night when you don't.